session. There we go. So finally, we have sorted out the technicalities, and thank you very much, everybody, for joining myself and Margo today. First of all, just to let you know, as you probably do know, that the format of today is that videos are off for now, muted. Please ask any questions that you want in the chat box, and we will endeavour to answer them at the end of the session or throughout the discussion if they're relative to what Margo's talking about. Hopefully this is live on Facebook, but we don't know. It didn't show a minute ago. The discussion is going to be recorded. There will be a recording to be sent out, a link to be sent out as well. So let's just start with introductions. Who am I? So I am Rebecca King. For those of you that don't know me, I am a registered nutritional therapist. I have been one for about 5 years. I operate on Zoom. Thanks to COVID, everyone knows how to use Zoom now, so I'm very much online. So it means I can see people from here and from all over the country and so on. So the type of clients that I see tend to be those that are struggling with digestive complaints, certainly bloating, IBS. I do a lot of functional stool testing. I see a lot of weight loss clients, those that have been on like yo-yo diets for their whole life and really are wanting to see how to lose weight, but in a really nice, healthy, nutritional way. I see clients with hormonal issues, certainly perimenopause, menopause, thyroid, and those that have just got kind of low energy, perhaps food sensitivities, and those that just want a review of their diet. It tends to be that I see them for a good amount of time, so 6 weeks minimum and furthermore, which kind of leads me on to why we're having this conversation in the first place. So I see a massive impact on my clients' progression due to emotional eating. They tend to start off really motivated, enthusiastic. We finish working together, and then they kind of slip back into the old habits again. It's a lot of it is sort of definitely with weight loss. When people emotionally eat, they really struggle to keep the weight at bay, and it's kind of choosing foods that they know that aren't good for them, that they know they're sensitive to, they might cause bloating, but then tend not to be able to stop themselves from eating them. They kind of see it as a bit of a reward system, a bit of a dopamine hit. So it's kind of looking at clients that are having, they tend to be having a bad day. So they're like, oh, I'm going to treat myself to something that perhaps they shouldn't be eating. And it's really preventing them from getting to the place that they want to be. And I see a lot of emotional attachment to food, and that is when they're stressed. So people have had a bad day and they come home from work and they said, oh, I just couldn't stop myself from eating this, that and the other today because I was really, really stressed out, or I was anxious, or I was bored. Boredom through eating tends to be really apparent in my sort of practice. And they kind of felt like the impression that I got was that they were eating for comfort and protection rather than eating mindfully, and it was really impacting a lot of their progress. There tends to be a lot of guilt and shame and blame as well. So I sort of saw this cycle of events where they would eat food, feel really guilty about it, and because they felt guilty, they would then eat again, and it was just this whole kind of rolling review of unhealthy eating. I've noticed that certain foods are emotionally driven, like they drive emotions. So things like sugary foods, chocolates and biscuits and cakes and so on. It tends to be really, really sugary foods. Wouldn't it be nice if it was broccoli? But it isn't. And that is because these types of foods really trigger a brain response. They are scientifically engineered to target like the pleasure receptors in the brain. So they tend to be grabbing these foods which are really dysregulating blood sugar. They are causing obviously blood sugar spikes, and it's getting them more, and developing more cravings and bad eating habits. So from my point of view, we now have scientifically engineered foods. We've got emotional eating, and it's really impacting how people move forward with their health goals. There's definitely a biological attachment as well. Certainly stress plays a massive part in how people's eating habits are. Our society has definitely faced faced with a really fast-paced life. We've got masses of responsibility, more than ever, you know, with our children, with our families. We've got commitments, we've got work going on at the same time. And don't get me wrong, we need the stress response. It's essential for human survival. But nowadays, these small, tiny stresses really do trigger a much bigger response. And it might be physical, it might be emotional stresses, it might be biological, environmental, metabolic. There's, you know, we are overcome with stress. And these types of stress responses really cause our cortisol levels to be sky high all the time. And when we've got high cortisol, we're in fight or flight, and our body is naturally wanting to eat more foods to help energize us and get us out of trouble, basically, or you know, get us to run away from a burning building, and so on. So really, yeah, you know, I see a lot of this in clinic, and I don't think it's due to lack of willpower. I think it's more of a coping mechanism. But it's really important for me and my clients to understand why we emotionally eat and how we can really change this behavior to make progress, to make health progress. So this is going to lead me to introduce lovely Margo, who's going to unpeel the onion. So tell us about who you are and so on.
Thank you, Becky, and thanks for inviting me. I only met Becky in the last couple of weeks, and we've had some really interesting conversations. We're so aligned in our way of working. But my name is Margo, and I am a life transformation coach. I've been a life coach for the past 10 years. I've trained actually twice as a life coach in different modalities, and I trained as a mentor to other coaches. I've mindfulness for stress and health, and neuro-linguistic programming, which is a study of language in our behavior, and many other things. I work with my own professional coach as well. So I tend to work with, I also started off my career as a life coaching, as a personal trainer. So I set up my own business as a personal trainer. So I have a background in health. So I do have a good understanding of where Becky is coming from as well. And I tend to work with people from all walks of life, from kind of an international executive to a housewife busy housewife who's going through a divorce. So I work with a broad range of people. And what I do really is help people change, create change in their life in whatever area it is. I do deep inner work with people and help them to create real change experientially in their life through understanding the mind and how the mind works, and where these behaviors are coming from. So that was a very full explanation of emotional eating, which I would agree with, and I will talk to. So I'm going to talk a little bit less about the biological part and a little bit more about the mindset part of this. So where it's actually coming from. So yes, emotional eating is a symptom. It's one of many symptoms that we use in our life to help make us feel better, but they're only ever temporary. They only ever give us a temporary fix, which we know because we keep doing it. So when we do the behavior and we get a quick fix, we feel better, we get that dopamine hit, and we feel relief for a moment, and then we do it again and again and again. And Becky mentioned willpower. Well, willpower is finite. We only have a certain amount of willpower, so we cannot ever rely on willpower to help us through that. But we will talk about strategies in a moment. So it is a symptom of an unmet need within us, and it is how we self-soothe and make ourselves feel better. So there is a compulsive element to the emotional eating as well. It's a habit, it's a behavior. I would classify emotional eating as an addictive behavior too.
Yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? It's not, you know, when you see, when I certainly look at emotional eating, there tends to be other addictions that go alongside that as well. It doesn't necessarily just mean food, it can be other things as well, whether they can't stop exercising even. I would say that's almost an addiction, is that type
Yeah,
of.
addictions come in lots of different forms. So yeah, emotional eating, social media,
Yeah.
even so the obvious, you know, drugs and alcohol, and but even we become addicted to the way in which we react emotionally to certain stimulus.
Yeah, yeah.
That's also an addiction.
And it's, you know, and it's easy in my situation for me to say to someone, right, you need to do A, B, and C, and them go, okay, you know, I'll take this information home with me, but actually, how am I going to implement it? And that's what I struggle to get to my clients, or to help support my clients with, is certainly, you know, and for them to understand how to put it into practice, basically.
So the best answers are always the answers that you come up with for yourself. So we can, and today I'll give you some strategies, but it really makes no difference unless it's coming from within you, unless it's something that you want to change for a start. Often we play lip service to this, so it's like I know I should change it. I know it should end. I know what I ought to be doing and what people think I should do. And I know it's not aligning with what my goals are for my own health and fitness and my body. But
would you say there's like
make myself do it?
No, that's it. And would you say there is like a triggering moment? So are they born emotional eaters, or is there something that happened? How does it, what kind of leads to the behavior of emotional eating?
So I mean, it's interesting that you asked that question. Are people born emotional eaters? So definitely not. But it is a learned behavior. But what I find often is that we identify with the behavior. So it feels like we are an emotional eater. It's who I am. And sometimes you will find that your parents or your siblings were emotional eaters as well. And it kind of establishes the identification even more. So when we're really identified with it, there's no space. There's no space between it. But generally what happens is there's first of all, we're only aware of 5% of our behaviors. Most of what's going on and what's driving this is subconscious. So awareness is really important here. So most people aren't aware of the triggers, and we know we're emotionally eating, but we don't know why. We don't know where it's coming from. And there will always be, and actually, Becky, you've mentioned it twice, but there will always be a reward, even though you may not be aware of what that is without doing some self-inquiry. And there will always be an unmet need within you that you're trying, so an unmet need or a gap or a void that you're trying to fill with the emotional eating. And the problem is that it's never filling the gap. So you keep doing the behavior, getting a quick hit. You get a quick hit from immediate, but then it wears off. So then we meet that with guilt and shame.
Yeah.
So we're creating a perpetual cycle of emotional eating. Then we get the hit, and then we get the guilt and the shame, and then we feel worse, and then we keep going. So, and then sometimes we might go through a phase of adopting willpower as a strategy, and we absolutely go for it for 3 months, and then at the end of it, it just runs out, and we're back where we started again, because the unmet need is still there. We still have that gap. that we need to fulfill, and most of us are not aware of what that unmet need is.
Yeah. So it's really looking at kind of root cause, isn't it? The roots to why this behavior has happened in the first place. What type of things might that be? What type of things could stimulate
sometimes that? Like sometimes it could be like, for example, it could be if we're we might have a reason to stay overweight because we're unattractive, for example, and we want to be unattractive because we don't want to attract male attention, for example. It could be that we have an association with food as a child, that what an association with when we were young with our parents, and how the habits that they had around food, and finishing your plate, and maybe not having enough food, or once it's gone, and overeating as a result of that. And it could be all kinds of emotions that we've been that we're trying to get rid of. So what we're looking at here is more, we're not looking to get rid of anything here, because there are parts of us, these unmet needs are parts of us that we've denied, that we've pushed away, that we've tried to get rid of because it's uncomfortable. So what we're looking at here is to integrate and to meet those emotions as they come up with love, with love, with kindness, with allowing ourselves to be heard, if you like, the child within us to be heard, to be listened to. So
it's so in depth, isn't it? It's not, when I send out a health questionnaire to someone and I ask about their eating habits, and quite often I get emotional eater, and it's just tick the box. Oh, okay, you're an emotional eater, but there is so many layers to it. It feels like it's it's not just something that you
individual.
Very individual.
It's really individual. Every single person will have different things going on from their past trauma. Trauma can be, anything. It can be something big that's happened in your life, or it might just be simply going to boarding school when you were a child. So that, it could be and being left, being separated from your mother, or it could be something bigger. So there's lots of things that happen us in our life, where we learn how to cope, and we learn strategies to cope and to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. This is a safety mechanism that we've adopted to keep ourselves safe, but it doesn't keep us safe. It's an illusion. Nothing is what it appears to be.
Do you think, sorry, I interrupted you there.
Okay.
I was going to say, do you think for people to make steps to change, do you think that they would have to be ready for that, rather than, you have to be in the right place in your mind to actually make, because like you say, it's a very protective and comforting thing to do. So it's really hard to sort of change that mindset.
If you wait for your mind to be in the right place, you will never start.
Fair enough. Yeah.
There is, you definitely need to want to change this, because nobody's going to change it for you. I can't change it for you. Nobody can change it for you. I walk by your side, I'll hold your hand, I'll point you, I'll guide you, I'll help you to do the inquiry, to understand what's going on. But you have to want to do the change. So you do have to want to, but you won't know how. The how you won't know. So yes, it's there's, and in what you said, there's an identification straight there when you tick that box. I am an emotional eater. So yes, you have to want to change it, but you don't need to know how. It's take the first step. Sometimes, if there's like 10 steps, and we focus on getting to the 10th step, The 10th step could be that emotional eating is no longer a pattern or a habit that I adopt as a coping strategy, because I found other ways of meeting that need. But we don't get onto the first step or the second step. So we jump straight to the 10th step, and then it becomes overpowering and it becomes unachievable. So then we never start. So my message to you today is if you can hear one thing in what I've said today, you do that one thing. And then, message me or come back to me or go back and rewatch the recording and do something else.
Yeah.
And, the answers are always within us. So you will be guided if you learn how to connect to yourself at a deeper level, then the answers are always within you. It's just that there's a fog surrounding them. So it can be difficult for some people. It's like we don't know the answers. You always know the answer.
Yeah. And this, I mean, we're talking about emotional eating right now, but I'm sure this is very much the same, like you say, for any sort of behavior, any repetitive behavior that you're really struggling to kind of move away from.
Yes, it's relevant to all emotional reactions. So when we get triggered reactions. So when we get triggered, so we get reactive. Something happens and we get reactive, and often we will react almost like on autopilot. So an emotional eating can be like you don't even realize you're doing it. It's until you're doing it, and then whatever it is that you're eating is gone, and it's like, oh, where did that go? How could I have eaten it so quickly?
Like my children.
But we do this on we do the mind's way of making things easy is to do things and make patterns and habits and to do things on autopilot. So we react, we get triggered by things that happen, and events or people or places or things or an emotion that comes up or something we were trying to get rid of. We get triggered, we feel uncomfortable, we get reactive. So we start to push that out. The way we get rid of it is we blame, we attribute how we feel to something outside of us, or we suppress, we push things back inside. So we go numb and we can't feel anything. And so we want to recognize and notice, become more aware of when we get triggered, because when we get triggered, there's always information for us. There's always learning for us in that triggered reaction. So if we can learn how to pause when we get triggered and not react, not eat, but actually pause and turn towards what's going on and question it. So things that we could, when we're questioning, we would be looking at, how is this behavior serving me right now? What is the reward? What do I need right now? And just pause and settle in and listen. And let it be there, but it will feel uncomfortable to not participate in your normal pattern. Will feel uncomfortable. What we're learning here is how to be okay with discomfort. Discomfort is normal. It's not, life is about rolling with the bumps in the road. Life is never going to be up here all the time. Life is a roller coaster. Things happen. We are learning how to be comfortable with the discomfort. And I call this, when we get a triggered, a reaction, resistance. Learning how to be with that without needing to act on it. And this is kind of part of emotional maturity too.
So steps, I mean, what would be your kind of solution to this? What steps do you think would you take to move forward and help yourself progress?
So as there's a few things that I would do. The first thing I said, I'll repeat again, is take the first step. I don't care what the second step is, or the third step, or the fourth step. Just take the first step. Nothing will ever change in your life without taking some action. Take action, and then take the next step. And often the next action will come to you as you go. The second thing I want to reiterate to you is you are not an emotional eater. It is a pattern. It is a behavior that you have learned. It's not who you are. If you've learned it, you can unlearn it. So remember that. And the third thing I want to reiterate is that you will change this. People can help you and guide you and support you and point you in the right direction, give you information. But you got to want to change this for yourself, because the only person that can change this is you. Nobody can do it for you. You can't go around this. You can't go over it. You got to go through it, learn how to be with the discomfort. So the strategies that I would suggest is the first thing I would suggest is learn how to perfect the pause. So I don't think that I don't think it's always useful to think of this in terms of just when I'm about to eat, I learn how to pause. Because at that point, you're feeling stressed or tired or lonely or aggressive or angry, or you're feeling some kind of emotion that is really big. So it can be difficult. So we start with smaller things. So with the pause, the ways that I would recommend is when if you drink lots of tea, for example, you boil the kettle lots. Every time you boil the kettle, pause. So instead of going off and doing the dishwasher and cleaning the kitchen and sorting out the kids or doing whatever you do, just pause. It takes 1 minute. Everybody, less than a minute. Everybody has that amount of time. And when you pause, just notice the sounds, notice the sound of the kettle, look in the garden, or notice the flowers and hear the birds, and pause your mind for a moment and notice all of the senses, what you're hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, all of the senses, just for a minute. And I would move that on to including the breath in this. So the breath is always present, and it's a great anchor. So the second thing I was going to say was learning how to drop into your body. So when we're triggered or reactive, we tend to be in our mind, in our thoughts, and our thinking has created this. We can't solve this with our thinking, because our thinking is the same thinking that's created it. And as far as our thinking is concerned, it's creating safety in this behavior. So our thinking will take us around and round and round in the same cycle, even though we may not be aware of it. So we want to learn how to drop into the body, because when we're in the body, we're not in our thinking, and our ego mind will keep pulling us back into the mind, but we want to drop into the body. So feel the body, and keep coming back to it. So what we're looking at here is feeling the sensation. So when we get triggered or fired, our nervous system gets activated. So if our nervous system gets activated, Becky mentioned earlier, we go into fight or flight. Your heart rate tends to be faster, and lots of other reactions in the body. So what we want to do is come into the body and just notice what's happening, and slow everything down using the breath. So take 3 or 4 breaths in through the nose, out through the nose. You can vary it. There's different ways of doing it, but what I would recommend is starting with just taking 3 to 5 breaths, and slowing everything down, really slowing the breath down. And maybe it's a good idea to, when you wake up in the morning, to drop into the body 5 breaths, at lunchtime, in the evening. So you're not waiting until emotional eating is becoming you're not waiting until you're reactive, you're triggered, you're practicing it.
Yeah.
So when you need it, it's there. So we're looking to feel the sensations in the body. So most of us are feeling our thinking. So we're learning how to actually feel the body. And there's a lot more that I could say on the breath, but for today I'll move on. But the other things that I would suggest, which we've talked already, is about noticing what your thinking is doing and questioning it. We're not looking at going into analysis, but if you just asked one question, I would ask, is what's going on in my head right now, is it true?
Mm.
You know, what is it true? What does this mean right now?
Yeah, have that internal dialogue, isn't it? It's just asking yourself, what are
you don't want to go into analyzing it, or because analysis will take you into a bit of paralysis. But our thinking is always created. Our thinking is never based on reality, because everything that we see in life we're seeing through a filter. It's like we're wearing a lens, and our lens is made up of our conditioning and our beliefs and our behaviors. And when we shift our thinking, when our thinking shifts at a foundational level, we have transformation, we have change. So we want to see the reality that our thinking, it's what we're seeing is not what it appears to be. So question what's going on, because it is no matter how much we believe it to be true, it's always a creation.
I love it. Yeah, I'm going to be taking some tips home from you as well, especially
Yeah.
some soothing with your lovely Irish accent as well.
I think we could do a podcast, a talk on any of those things on their own, to be honest.
Just back to the breathing, actually, I talk to a lot of my clients about breathing, because a lot of them are in fight or flight mode, and I'm trying to downregulate that response, and breathing is one of the most sort of easiest things you can do. And I use a lot of box breathing, and you probably have heard of that, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it for 4. Yeah, and it's just such a simple strategy. And sometimes if I'm het up, or if had a bad day or something's happened, and then I get myself into that breathing mode, it just helps bring me back to my present, rather than keeping me busy in my head, where it shouldn't be. And also just really concentrating on exhalation as well. So really slowing down the breathing out. That's probably something that you know about, but it's been really helpful for my clients.
Breath work is amazing, because it has like a physiological response in the body as well. So the breath it's an anchor to the moment as well, because you don't have the last breath or the next breath. You only have the one you're in now, and you've always got it with you. So it's a really good tool. So it works in so many different ways. But yes, but again, I would really encourage you to practice it morning, lunchtime, evening, and then adopt it when you need it.
Yeah.
If you get into the habit of breathing, and if you Google box breathing, get YouTube clip, they'll explain it. But you want to be breathing deep into the belly, and if you get used to breathing in that way, it becomes a habit. You're creating new habits. So find ways of meeting the unmet need. That are more healthy for you and helpful for you going forward, and this is one of them. You're replacing you're using something that is helpful, you're creating a new habit. And there's other more practical strategies as well, like setting yourself up for success. And I'm sure you talk a lot about these things as well. But having not having create an opportunity for there to be a pause. So if you don't have the foods that if the thing that you eat a lot of when you feel stressed is biscuits, don't have the biscuits in the house. And it seems so obvious, but we always have reasons for it. It's for the kids, or it's from a partner, or whoever. But if you're the one that eats them, don't have them in the house. But it creates a pause, you see. Anything that creates a pause then enables you to, okay, let's question my thinking. We can then start to use different strategies to help you. But
I love that sort of pause strategy. I really do. Just stopping and thinking and give yourself time, I guess, to understand why you're doing it, and trying to change that mindset and that automatic behavior of just grabbing it without thinking about it. And I suppose it comes with practice, doesn't it? The more you do it, the more practice, and then it becomes part of your new sort of habit.
Yes, it's creating more healthy habits. That's is the way forward. And also, consider things, like mindfulness meditation. It doesn't work for everybody. That is another podcast. But consider your own self-care and what you can do to things like going for a bath, talking to a friend, writing, reading a book, spending time in nature. Nature is our greatest teacher. So it's spend time doing things that you love. Because the things that we love doing are the things that we value. We do more of the things that we love, that will become our new, it becomes our new driver. So it kind of replaces that. It replaces the need for the saboteur to enter. Need to do this self-sabotaging behavior all of the time.
That's some fantastic strategies and tips, and I think it's going to be really useful. It's useful for me to understand a little bit more about it, and certainly the people that I work with, which is fantastic. So if there's anything else you want to mention, Margo, please do. If we covered everything that you wanted to cover.
Yes, I think so. There's loads more.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
I think it's what's really important. Another is to see that this is a symptom. It's not the cause. And if you imagine that there's a sewage pipe coming from a factory into a river, and downstream you're in the river with a bucket trying to get all the sewage out, but the sewage keeps on coming. You want to go to the factory and turn off the sewage. That's the cause. That's the source of the problem. And the river will actually self-correct. So we do all this work, effort, struggle, battling with this downstream. But when we look at the cause of this, it dissolves often without any effort. If you look at the things in your life where you have no thinking about it, and you seem to be really functional and healthy, and it might be that you're really struggling with emotional eating, but in your career you've really got it nailed. You look at the difference. You haven't got lots of thinking about it. So look at the cause, because we get tied up in this, and we can't fix it with our thinking.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be, it's actually not a struggle or effort. This is not about effort or hard work.
Mm.
It's effort or hard work, then there's something here that you're not seeing right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's it. But I mean, there's so much. I don't know if anybody here has any questions. I don't know if we're live on Facebook or whether
Says we are. Let me just
we
double
are.
check. It says we are, but whether we are or not, that's another question. Who knows?
We're the techno queens, I think. Okay, not coming up on mine, but we'll put the recording on there and circle back to see if there's any questions. But is anybody here got any questions?
Let me just unmute. Shall I stop the recording now? And
Yeah.
then we can ask them to see if there's any questions coming up. So let me just pause. Stop the recording.